Today News Update.
This is your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Wednesday, June 29th. So glad you can join us. The ability to track the COVID-19 virus is under threat. That's according to Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. He made the revelation on Wednesday during a press conference in Geneva.
On COVID-19, driven by BA4 and BA5 in many places, cases are on the rise in 110 countries, causing overall global cases to increase by 20%, and deaths have risen in 3 of the 6 WHO regions, even as the global figure remains relatively stable. This pandemic is changing, but it's not over. We have made progress, but it's not over. Our ability to track the virus is under threat as reporting and genomic sequences are declining, meaning it's becoming harder to track Omicron and analyze future emerging variants.
With regards to the spread of monkeypox, which is now in 50 new countries, he said controlling further spread will require intense response efforts.
On monkeypox, while the emergency committee did not advise that the current outbreak represents a public health emergency of international concern, they acknowledged the emergency nature of the event and that controlling the further spread requires intense response efforts. They also advised that I should reconvene them quickly based on the evolving situation, which I will do. Furthermore, the virus has now been identified in more than 50 new countries, and that trend is likely to continue. I'm concerned about sustained transmission because it would suggest that the virus is establishing itself and it could move into high-risk groups, including children, the immunocompromised, and pregnant women.
Government Minister Dr. Chantel Monroe-Knight is urging the country's middle class to shoulder some of the burden and make the sacrifice to pay the Pandemic Contribution Levy. The senator, who is a minister in the Prime Minister's office, was speaking during debate on the Pandemic Contribution Levy Bill 2022, which was passed in the Senate today.
It's a one-off levy, Mr. President. It's a one-off levy. And we're asking these companies to contribute 15% of their net income to the national effort. Mr. President, I am not going to stand here and say to you that this levy will not perhaps cause some level of displacement for companies. But I will stand here and say to you that we are all in an uncomfortable position. I will stand here and say to you, Mr. President, that we are all called on in this moment to share this burden. I will stand here before you, Mr. President, and say that in the context of the fact that you have some ability to be able to achieve those profits in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, that there's some ability for you to be able to continue to contribute.
But independent Senator Dr. Christina Hines is not on board with the retroactive aspect of the levy.
It is true. No one can deny, or let me not say so. Some people can deny, but it is quite unlikely that people would take issue with the types of companies being identified that have been identified to pay at the level of 15%. Those with net incomes of 5 million or above, and in the specific sectors. This is relatively fair to me. What is unfair is that you're going back in time to do this, 2020 and 2021. I do not believe that this is fair. And it is not that I am saying that these companies are, poor entities that now are going to have to look to scramble to find the resources. I don't think it is fair to go in the past when people have reasonable expectations as to what is to happen, and we do not know how they have planned their affairs because we are going 2 years back in the past, 2020 and 2021.
There is an urgent need for cybersecurity scrutiny of local merchants in order to avoid or minimize data breaches which occur at third-party transaction points. This was one of the suggestions coming out of this year's Domestic Financial Institution Conference hosted by the Central Bank of Barbados and held under the theme Managing Cybersecurity Risk in the Financial Sector. Panelist Ryan Graves, who's the Chief Technology Officer at the City of Bridgetown Cooperative Credit Union, stated that in light of the increase in mobile apps, online businesses, and digital payment methods, the risk of cybersecurity breaches had been heightened.
I find in our industry, the financial sector, we put a lot of emphasis on auditing as relates to the accounting standards and stuff like that, and we focus a lot on anti-money laundering and that type of stuff. But I don't see the same level of emphasis being placed to cybersecurity. And I think we need to emphasize that more, whereby just like how you have all the accounting audits you do yearly and you are asking staff and stuff to do the anti-money laundering training, I think cybersecurity has to be in there as well at that same level as all those other things. And I think we need to push that more. In terms of internal testing, a lot of organizations may not be able to afford like a yearly penetration test and cybersecurity audit test. And we need to look into that, because a lot of merchants, as Jason said, would have gone and put out websites and doing online merchants and stuff like that. But a lot of those organizations would have never done like a penetration test. A lot of those organizations don't do yearly cybersecurity audits. And we have to insist on those organizations do those type of things, not just the financial institution.
Acting Prime Minister Cynthia Bradshaw has urged residents to be prepared and to remain on alert for the remainder of the hurricane season, which ends on November 30th. Her advice comes on the heels of the passage of potential tropical cyclone number 2, which churned across the southern Windward Islands last night with brisk winds and heavy rains. The acting Prime Minister said while the country was spared the worst effects of the system, the best line of defense was to be prepared.
I want to thank Barbadians for their quick response yesterday and to urge them to take this opportunity to check around their homes, to secure palings and roofs, to clear up any debris and bulk waste which may be lying around, and also to trim or remove any trees that could present a danger to life or to property. And to remember that we are only at the start of the hurricane season, and that given the unpredictable nature of recent systems, our best line of defense in dealing with climate change is to be prepared and to pay attention to reports coming from official sources.
Barbadians are being given another option of affordable housing. It's as a result of a partnership between the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Business Development and Caribbean Housing Solutions under the first Cooperative Investment Housing Project. Minister in the ministry, Sandra Husbands, speaking to reporters during a tour of the construction site at Heritage Estates Work Hall St. Philip, said this is a prime opportunity for potential homeowners.
And why do I love it? Because it has killed 3 birds with 1 stone. 1, it has allowed young entrepreneurs to get an opportunity to get started on the opportunities here in Barbados and being part of the housing revolution which the Barbados government is bringing. Secondly, it is providing much needed housing for families who ordinarily would have a difficulty not only getting a mortgage, but being able to afford it. And so we're bringing affordable housing. And I am so proud of the fact that the cooperative society has been the engine, the agent that has enabled this to happen.
Regional and international news coming up after this short break.
Pure oxygen is way more than just water. We infuse pristine water with over 1 billion tiny oxygen bubbles using our state-of-the-art process. The benefits of additional oxygen are huge, from strengthening your immune system to increasing energy levels, stamina, and sports performance. And that's not all. It also improves skin health, helps you sleep better, and reduces stress. Join the movement of people experiencing the benefits of pure oxygen. It's not hype, it's science.
Regional news now in Guyana. Residents from the east coast of Demerara on Tuesday took to the streets in protest over the alleged release of a police officer linked to the murder of a young man from the community. Gordon Mosley of News Source Guyana has more.
Some stores along the east coast of Demerara quickly closed their doors as the protesters, many of them on motorcycles and bicycles, continued their march towards the city. All vehicles were pulled onto the roadways in a number of villages as the protesters continued their march. In a statement, the Guyana police force called for an end to the protest, while indicating that the police rank fingered in the shooting that remains in police custody. Quindon Bacchus was shot 6 times by the police during an alleged undercover operation. 5 of those gunshots were to his back, while the 6th was to his chest at close range. The police initially stated that the youth fired at them, but video recordings from CCTV cameras in the area do not appear to support that contention. The police commissioner has promised a thorough investigation into the incident.
And finally, on the international front, R&B artist R. Kelly has been sentenced to 30 years in prison on racketeering and sex trafficking crimes. The 55-year-old was convicted last September, but lawyers say he will appeal.
Well, we are really looking forward to the appeal. That's what I can say. We believe that we have excellent arguments on appeal and that the Court of Appeals will ultimately determine that this case was overcharged and that there was no enterprise.
That's news, but for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostv.tv. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And Capital Media HD.